Hello everyone, and I'm back with another Read-Along video, and it's Peter Pan, and in the last chapter of chapter 12, and it's a little suspense, and it has a little bit of action and suspense, and we don't know what's going to happen next, so are the Lost Boys gonna really walk the plank? Is Wendy gonna be Smee's mother forever? And do you think Captain Hook really got rid of Peter Pan? Let's find out in the 15th chapter and see what happens next. Chapter 13, Hook or Me, this time. Peter was flying silently around the island when he came across the crocodile. He heard the ticking and realized that he could use it to his advantage. Knowing Hook's fear of the crocodile, Peter imitated the crocodile's ticking, giving the pirates the impression that he was the crocodile. This is actually what he hoped for, but he didn't think of one thing. The real crocodile was among those who heard the sound, and it was silent, and it silently followed Peter. The crocodile, no sooner did Peter remember it than he heard the ticking. Peter was confused when he heard the sound and looked behind him swiftly. Seeing nothing, Peter reminded himself that he was probably still making the noises to scare the pirates. How clever of me, he thought at once, and signaled to the boys not to burst into applause. At that moment, the quartermaster emerged on the deck. While Peter stabbed him, John covered his mouth so that his groan could not be heard. As he fell forward, 4 boys came forward to catch him so that the thud wouldn't be heard. At the signal, the boys threw the man overboard, and they heard a splash as the body hit the water. Of course, the water. One counted slightly. The pirates began moving around, so they didn't hear the ticking. It's gone, Captain. It's gone, Captain, Smee said, wiping his spectacles. All is still again. Hook looked around and listened carefully for the ticking. When he heard nothing, he drew up to his full height. He hated the boys even more for having seen him break down like this. The boys quietly looked at one another. They had seen Peter sneak into the pirate's cabin. They saw Pirate Billy Jukes as he strode to the cabin. Hook was singing a song when he was cut short by a terrible screech from within the cabin. This was followed by the crowing sound understood by the boys, but which sounded eerie to the pirates. "Two," said slightly. The Italian Seiko hesitated for a moment and then burst into the cabin. He came staggering out. "What's wrong with Jukes?" hissed Hook. "He's dead." "Stabbed," said Seiko in a hollow voice. "The cabin's as black as a pit," Seiko said, almost gibbering. "But there is something terrible in there. The thing you see, the thing you heard crowing." Hook noticed the happy excitement of the boys and the scared looks of the pirates. "Seiko," he said in his most steely voice, "go back and fetch me out that doodle-doo." Seiko begged not to be sent in, but Hook gave him a dark look.
Along with the chocolate blueberry complaint with orange and cayenne pepper spice. Ron, what are your thoughts?
I'm fine with the chocolate cake. Your Bavarian feeling has a nice kick of cayenne. However, I think you would have used your time much better doing one soup.
I don't know, rushed for time, maybe they were trying to do too much, but all the details.
The Italian went inside the cabin, flinging his arms everywhere. There was a moment of silence, followed by a death screech.
I've been a huge fan of Wonder Woman ever since I was a kid. I also love the aspect that she's an angel. So we included her shield with the cake sitting on, and then we have her sword pulling at the top, and then we
Then silence again.
from her costume. Well, we chose sriracha as our flavor, so we did chocolate cake with the sriracha.
Nobody
because
spoke
chocolate makes it
except
better.
slightly.
And we
Three!
did that with a cream
Hook
cheese,
turned on
mango,
his
and
men.
pineapple buttercream.
"Who's to go in and bring me that doodle-doo?" "We'll wait till Seiko comes out," growled Starkey.
I actually
That
like
is
the fruits
supporting
with the
him.
chocolate and the sriracha.
"I
So
think I heard you volunteer, Starkey," said Hook, peering again. "Not likely," cried Starkey. "My sharp hook thinks you did," said Hook, going towards him.
All right, Aaron, thank you.
Going towards him.
Tell us about your
"Starkey, you don't think you should obey the Hook?" While he looked behind him, Starkey saw no forthcoming support. He saw the heart glint. Hook's eyes turned and threw himself overboard. "4," counted slightly, seizing a lantern and waving his hook around in a menacing fashion. Sorry.
But the photo is extraordinarily ambitious.
It's in
Love
fashion.
some of the imagery in there, and also the characters seem to be floating
Hook
a little bit.
said,
Wasn't touching
"I'll
the body,
bring
so
the doodle-doo
that ruins some of the
out
effect of that
myself."
inside the window as well.
Flighty was ready to say 5, but didn't, for Hook came staggering out. Something blew out the light. Something blew out the light, he said unsteadily. "What up, Seiko?" asked Noodler. "He's dead, just like Jukes."
Her A1C?
All pirates are superstitious, and Cookson cried. "They do say the surest sign of a ship's doom is when there's one on board more than can be accounted for." Hook had forgotten about his prisoners, but at that moment, he saw them and smiled. "Lads," he shouted, "let's fight 'em." the doodle-doo for their lives. Let them fight the doodle-doo for their lives. If they kill the beast inside the cabin, we're so much the better. If they get killed, we're none the worse. The boys pretended to struggle as they were pushed inside the cabin, the pirates locking the door behind them. All this time, Wendy was tied to the mast, but she didn't have to wait any longer. In the cabin, Peter found the key that unlocked the boys' chains. After freeing them and signaling them to hide, he rushed to Wendy and cut her bonds.
Look for new Align yogurt-coated probiotic fruit bites online.
And they all could have easily flown away, but there was just one thought that prevented Peter from doing so. Hook or me, this time, he told her to hide herself with the others, taking her place at the mast. He wrapped himself in her cloak. "Fling the girl overboard!" cried Hook, and they made a rush at the figure in the cloak. "There's no way who can save you now, Missy,"
For this batter up challenge, your
Pirate Mullins hissed jeeringly. "There's one," replied the figure. "Who's that?" "Peter Pan," came the terrible answer, and as he spoke, Peter flung off his cloak, and then they all knew who it was who had been undoing them in the cabin. Twice, Hook tried to speak, and twice he failed. Peter Pan was still alive. At last he cried, "Cleave him to the brisket," but it was without conviction. At that moment, Peter gave orders to the boys to attack. In a moment, the sound of weapons clashing vibrated through the ship. As the pirates were not prepared, it was easier for the boys to overpower them. Some of the insurgents leapt into the sea. Others hid in dark recesses.
And don't forget, before your time is up, you must create a
Where
tasting
did
cake for your judges, and
Where
you must
they were
carefully
found
prepare
by
your cake
Slightly,
over to one of
who
these
did not
displays
fight.
for judging,
Instead,
because you
he
have
ran
just
about
4
with a
hours
lantern
to bring us the ultimate
that he
tasty,
flashed
comments-worthy
in their
battle of
faces.
good versus evil.
Hmm?
Your time starts.
So that they were half blinded and fell as an easy prey to the raking swords of the other boys. There was little sound to be heard, but the clang of weapons, an occasional screech or splash, and Slightly counting away. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Suddenly, in the middle of the noise, Hook found himself face to face with Peter Pan. The others drew back and formed a ring around him. The two occupants in the ring stared at each other for a long time. "So, Pan," said Hook at last, "this is all you're doing?" "Aye, James Hook," came the stern answer. "It is all my doing." "Proud and rude youth," said Hook. "Prepare to meet your death." "Dark and sinister man," Peter answered. "Prepare to die too." And with that, they charged at each other. Peter was a superb sword. And with that, they charged at each other. Peter was a superb swordsman. Hook was quite good himself, but to his surprise, he found his thrust turned aside all the times. Peter then lunged fiercely and pierced him in the ribs. At the sight of his own blood, Hook dropped his sword, thus being at Peter's mercy. Now, cried all the boys, but with some magnificent gesture, Peter invited his opponents to pick up his sword. Hook did so instantly, but with a tragic feeling that Peter was showing good form. Pan? Who and what are you? He cried huskily. I'm Joy, Peter answered at a venture. I'm a little bird that has broken out of the egg. Abandoning the fight, Hook rushed to a barrel of gunpowder and lit it. In 2 minutes, he cried, the ship will be blown to pieces. However, Peter calmly picked up the barrel of gunpowder in his hands and flung it overboard. Seeing Peter slowly advancing upon him through the air, with dagger poised, Hook got ready to jump into the sea and swim away. He did not know that the crocodile was waiting for him. As he stood on the edge, looking over his shoulder at Peter, gliding through the air, he invited him with a gesture to use his foot and made Peter kick instead of stab. Hook fell straight into the crocodile's mouth, and that was the end of Captain Hook. And that was the end of Captain James Hook. Wendy, of course, had stood by, taking no part in the fight, slowly watching Peter with glistening eyes. Now that all was over, she became proponent again. She praised all the boys equally. Well, I guess that's all for this chapter. And if you ask me, chapter 13 is longer than I imagined. Besides all the previous chapters, that one has even more suspense. This one has even more suspense and action. And I can't wait to read you the 14th chapter tomorrow. And I'll see you next time what happens next, when Wendy and her brothers had to go home. And I'll see you next time.